Yeah, well, it looks like Cherie's getting us live.
Okay.
Let's wait
Yeah,
for her.
let's wait. Yeah, if we can wait, please. We're 3 minutes early, so I just was setting things up. I'll be right back.
Okay.
Perfect. Hello, everyone that's joined us. Go ahead and put your city and state in the chat for us so we know where we have guests from today. Thank you guys for spending a little bit of your afternoon with us. Awesome. We have, let's see, Glendale, Arizona, Detroit, Michigan, Washington, D.C., Austin, Texas, Fairfax, Virginia, Everett, Washington, New Orleans, New Brunswick, New Jersey. Oh, wow, Germany? Okay. From Jersey to Germany. All right. Welcome, everyone. And of course, ATL in the house. ATL is always in, and on every call we have, there's some representation. And Inkster, Michigan. All right, Cherie.
Yeah, we want to give people another minute to come on. We are so happy to have everyone here today to talk about how to raise from $10,000 to $5 million for your business. We're grateful to have everybody here. We have a crowdfunding expert, Mr. Bill Huston, on to talk with us. And the session is for anybody, entrepreneurs who are thinking about raising funds through equity crowdfunding. We're going to just have Bill discuss for about 20 minutes what is equity crowdfunding, how does it work from an entrepreneur point of view, what's the process, and then Tawana is going to talk for about 10 minutes with regards to the 10K project and how we fit into that. So let me actually hit the recording. And again, welcome everybody to the session. This is how to raise from $10,000 to $5 million for your business. And we are here with Mr. Bill Huston, who is going to spend about 20 minutes talking about the process of equity crowdfunding from an entrepreneur's point of view. And then Ms. Tawana Rivers is here to talk from the 10K project perspective and how we help to bridge that gap from your idea to capital. So thank you, Mr. Bill Huston, for being here today. One of the most foremost experts in equity crowdfunding, especially within the Black community. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate, and I feel honored to actually be here with the 10K project to talk about equity crowdfunding and investment crowdfunding. So I love this. I love the conversation. I love to talk about this, and I'm excited to get started.
Okay, then. Before we let Mr. Bill loose, we just want to let everyone know who is new here what the 10K Project is. I am calling it the nation's largest community of small dollar investors that focus on funding Black-owned businesses. And if 10,000 of us came together and we put in small amounts of money, we could honestly raise $1 million or more for our businesses. We can profit from our own innovation, we can create jobs, and we can build Black wealth. So we have three groups of people that we bring together. The first are the entrepreneurs with great ideas for products and services, but they're looking to raise capital. The second group are investors, small dollar investors with $100 or more, that if they hear about a business that they like, they're willing and able, I should say, to help fund that business. And then the third group of people are those service providers, our CPAs, attorneys, graphic designers, etc. Because once an entrepreneur raises money, they're going to need services and products in order to grow their business and move to the next milestone. And why would the Black dollar not circulate better, except for the fact that the 10K project has this ecosystem that we're building with all three of those individuals. So that is what the 10K project is. And if you want to become a member or learn more, it's the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com, or weinvestblack.us. Either one gets you to the website. So with that, I'm going to first of all, Tawana, did I miss anything? Do you need to add anything? Okay,
Nope,
perfect. All right. So with that, then I am going to turn over the conversation for the next 20 minutes to Mr. Bill Huston. And thank you so much. Take it away, sir.
All righty. Can I share my screen to put up the presentation? Is that?
Yes, you can.
All right. Can everybody see the screen? Let me start there at the beginning. Okay, great. That was a really great introduction, and something that I think is very powerful that the 10K project is doing as I get started here is that what they're doing is they're bringing together this group of people who are willing, ready, and able to invest. And the reason that is so important is because when you have that group, that syndicate, then what can happen is businesses or real estate projects can get funded immediately, right? As soon as people do their due diligence, they understand it. They understand how they're going to get their return on investment. If they like the business, then that's something that can happen immediately. And I think that is very powerful. And I love the 10K project for that. So as I get started here, what I want to do is provide a little bit of background into the context of where we are and why I think that that this is so important. First, share a little bit about myself, who I am. So I'm the founder and chief marketing officer for CrowdMax Publishing. CrowdMax Publishing is a website that is focused on equity and investment crowdfunding for the Black community. So what I do is I produce a blog, a newsletter, videos on YouTube that people can go to for free, and they can actually learn more about this. So I've been around the crowdfunding space for a very long time, since about 2012. I've done both rewards and investment crowdfunding. In 2014, Inc. magazine named me one of the top 19 global crowdfunding experts to know. I'm one of the three founding members of the Black Crowdfunding Coalition, and I have some ebooks. And I've had some opportunities to speak around the country, on this very topic, which is just a little bit of background on me before I get into this a little bit more. So as I was saying, one of the things that I always like to do is I always like to talk a little bit about the context that investment crowdfunding is coming to us in, and what does that look like, and where are we today as a community? One of the things that I found from a survey is that the major issue for Black-owned businesses is a lack of access to capital. What does that lack of access to capital look like? And that lack of access to capital is staggering. It's dismal. It's sometimes unbelievable when you really sit down and dig into the data. The things that jump out to me the most are that the Black-owned businesses receive about 2% of SBA-backed funding from banks, about 1% of venture capital. And to dig a little deeper into that venture capital, the fastest growing demographic of entrepreneurs in the United States are Black women. And Black women receive a whopping 0.27% of venture capital. If we could just sit and for just a second think about that, the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs only receive 0.27% of venture capital. That is really counterproductive, and it really stops these businesses from growing and expanding and becoming, what it is that they could potentially become if they had access to capital. So I like to always try to paint that picture. Another picture that I really want to paint before I get into this really deep is, this whole myth about, being middle class and earning a middle class income. And one of the things that middle class is often described by the amount of income that someone makes, and is not talked about in the amount of wealth that someone holds. And when we look at it from that perspective, white households hold about 8 times as much wealth as Black households and Black families. So despite the fact that we may be making the same amount of money, we don't have the same amount of wealth. So when it comes time maybe to invest in a business, I can't necessarily sell some stocks or sell a property and, provide that money for a cousin or a son or someone who I want to help them to invest, because I don't have that wealth. I only have the income. I think that's a very important concept that we have to look at. There was an article that I read, and this really kind of hit me. It was called The Road to Zero Wealth. One of the things that really stood out to me is it said it would take 228 years for the average Black family to reach the level of wealth that the average white family holds today. That was staggering to me. But what was frightening to me is that if we continue this racial wealth gap and we continue economically the way we are, by 2053, the median Black household will have zero wealth. And the reason that is so staggering is because in 1968, when the fair housing laws were signed, we own less housing than we did in 1968. That is really staggering, and we are going in the wrong direction. And this is why I absolutely believe that investment crowdfunding is something that is going to be a game changer for us. As I said, I did rewards crowdfunding for a number of years, from about 2012 to about 2016. And, I always knew that investment crowdfunding was coming, that was going to be something that was going to be a real game changer for our community. The reason it was going to be a game changer for our community is it would allow community-led economic development. It would allow businesses, Black-owned businesses, and real estate development in the community that was community funded. It was funded with community capital, and it was led by the community. So we didn't necessarily have to wait for anyone to say, okay, move forward here, or, we're going to give you a bank loan, or we're going to give you a grant. No, we have the ability today through investment crowdfunding to say, I want to do a project. I get that project up on a platform, and then we get that invested. And again, that's why I think that the power of what the 10K project is doing is so great. It is just great. It is something for our community that that we really need to look into, and we really need to participate in that, because now once we get our due diligence done, we have a group of investors who can get businesses and real estate projects funded, and that's really powerful. So what investment crowdfunding has done is It allows non-accredited investors to invest. Non-accredited investors are people who are not wealthy. There's a definition of accredited investors, someone who makes $200,000 or more if they're single over the last 3 years, or if they're married, they've made $300,000 or more, or if they have a net worth of $1 million minus their primary residence, which is not very many people. But now these non-accredited investors through investment crowdfunding can invest. What does that mean? What does that look like? Looks like anyone over the age of 18 can invest up to $2,000 in companies that are listed on a portal. So that is something that is very powerful because it does two things in our community. It allows us to access capital. It allows developers and founders to access capital directly from the community, but it also provides a pathway for people in the community to invest directly into businesses and real estate projects, which allows a path through inclusive investing to building wealth in our communities and to keep those dollars circulating in our communities. I saw a meme and I thought it was very interesting. And it was kind of a play on Black Lives Matters. And what I found interesting was it said invest like Black Lives Matters. So I thought that was very interesting. There it is. Got ahead of myself there. So investment crowdfunding is a financing strategy that involves issuing investors ownership in a company in exchange for the dollars. So a lot of times in our community, when we think about crowdfunding, we think about how we can do rewards like Kickstarter or Indiegogo or GoFundMe. And this is something that is completely different. Investment crowdfunding is me investing in a company. I am putting my money up and I am getting a share of that company. I am getting stock in that company. I'm taking ownership in that company. If that company does well, then that means that I am going to do well as a new owner or stockholder in that company. And that is a very powerful concept. And that is something that for the last 80 years, and in reality, in our entire history in the United States, we have not had the opportunity to do. And this is why I think that investment crowdfunding has to be examined on a much deeper level in our community. As I stated early on, traditional funding simply does not work for our community. All you have to do is go back, look at the numbers, and those numbers will tell you that it does not, right? 3% of SBA loans and 1% of venture capital goes to Black-owned businesses. So it doesn't work for us. So this is an opportunity for us as a community to really start to work as a community to build an ecosystem. When we think about building an ecosystem, and this is why I think that it's really important that we understand as not just Black Americans, but as Americans. In a McKinsey report, they said that if Black-owned businesses were on par with the population, then there would be an additional $290 billion in economic activity. That economic activity would help build wealth in the Black community, but that economic activity also builds wealth and economic activity in the United States, and it makes us as a country more competitive globally. So the other thing that I want to say about that on this slide is that this doesn't work for everybody, and every business isn't a good fit, but it is definitely something for every business, every real estate opportunity to look into to see if you are a good fit. And also what investment crowdfunding does is it provides, again, this opportunity for people in our community to become passive investors in deals and opportunities that are private before they get to, the public markets. And that's where a lot of the wealth is built. And for 80 years, we were denied that opportunity. And today, this is really something to look into because we are no longer denied that opportunity. And, if we get in, we do our due diligence and we learn how this process works and participate in this process, there's a real opportunity for us to build wealth. So Black founders and real estate developers can now raise up to $5 million directly from the crowd. What does that mean? What does that look like? So the very essence of crowdfunding is being able to get small amounts of money from a large group of people. When investment crowdfunding first came about, I had an opportunity to be on a marketing and PR panel in Los Angeles, and everyone was early on, and they were talking about getting the compliance and all those documents and documentation ready to get this to get these investment crowdfunding opportunities off. And what we found was that crowdfunding, whether it be investment crowdfunding, rewards crowdfunding, there's one simple rule, and that rule is that if you don't build an excited and engaged crowd, then you're not going to get the funding that you're looking for. And that's just as true in investment crowdfunding as it is in rewards crowdfunding. So as we think about this, this is why the 10K project is so important, is because they are building a crowd of investors who are not only ready and willing, but they're educated and they understand this process. And that's very powerful. Investment crowdfunding can eliminate the need for banks and VCs in the very early stage of funding, because now we can go directly to the crowd. We can go directly to our community to raise funds for our businesses and our real estate projects. And that also gives the opportunity to people in our community to get in early, to get in on the bottom floor and really see the benefits of investing early and get those early returns. Now there is risk, right? The earlier you invest, the more the risk, but the higher the risk, the higher the return. As we move forward with this, a good friend of mine, Ricky Johnson, he always says that your money is in your crowd. And to me, that is the real power of investment crowdfunding, is being able to build a crowd, to have a shared vision with that crowd, and to get those people to invest. And everybody wins by building wealth in the business. I'll tell a quick story here. The last campaign that I did, it just closed in January the 13th, and we were able to raise $250,000 with a company. But not only were we able to raise that $250,000 from 412 investors, we were also able to increase the sales of the company by 250% over the year before. And the reason we were able to do that is because of the crowd. So not only did we get a crowd of people, 412 people, to invest in the company, but they also purchased the product, and they also told other people about the product. So we had a built-in brand advocates and customer base through that crowd. So crowdfunding is very important, not only for those investment dollars, but also to keep that money circulating through the community as customers. So some of the benefits of investment crowdfunding, it's a chance to earn substantial money. And when I say a chance to earn substantial money, I talked about that just briefly a moment ago, but it's an opportunity for businesses who are normally unable to access capital from their community, but they also have the opportunity to build deeper and closer ties and relationships with their customer base, with their investment base. And that customer and investment base is going to be able to spread the message peer-to-peer to a bigger group of people. I like to use the example, if I had a bakery and I invested in the bakery in a local community, then I would eat as many donuts as I possibly could, because there's a financial benefit tied to that bakery for me. And I'm going to tell as many people as I can to eat at that bakery as well, because there's a financial benefit. And there's also a community benefit tied to that, because that money is going to continue to circulate in the community. So, anybody that's over the age of 18 who wants to invest in crowdfunding, who wants to learn about how crowdfunding works, how investment works, this is your opportunity to learn through the 10K project, to learn through CrowdMax. To finish up here, if you want to connect with me, this is how you can connect with me. Anybody who is on this webinar today, if you send me an email at Bill Huston, Huston, at crowd-max.com, then I will send you a primer on investment crowdfunding, as well as a case study on the last offer and campaign that I did. Would love to thank everybody from the 10K Project for this opportunity to come on and speak. And thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Bill. We've got a few questions.
Yeah. If you can repeat the email address, please, Bill.
That's Bill. Last name is Huston, Huston, at crowd-max.com. If you send me an email and let me know that you were on the call today, what I'll do is I'll send you a case study from my Pure Light offer, and also send you a primer on investment crowdfunding for the Black community.
Perfect. I got that in there. Go ahead, Tawana. Thank you.
Wonderful. So Juanita says, what are some crowdfunding platforms that are particularly supportive of people of color? So Bill, I'm gonna start this and then I'm gonna let you take over. So they are all very interested in us right now. So that's the thing we need to be mindful of, right? There was a time where that was not the case. We are a little more popular these days. And so there are many more I'm seeing campaigns of color that the other crowdfunding platforms are supporting. There is one Black-owned platform to my knowledge, and Bill, if you know of more, please share, but By the Block is the one Black-owned platform that we know of. And then the others also obviously support people of color, but they are not Black-owned. Bill, you want to continue answering that one?
Yeah, sure. So I want to go back to By the Block, and because By the Block is such a powerful example of what the crowd can do. By the Block was actually funded by raising funds through a reward crowdfunding campaign. They raised $110,000 to actually build out the By the Block platform, which is exceptional to me. And when we look a little bit deeper into that, in 2020, By the Block was one of the top 10 platforms, equity crowdfunding platforms, based on the amount of dollars raised. And it wasn't venture funded like many of the other platforms. So, kudos to By the Block and, Linda P. Smith. I always like to say that Linda is Black girl magic personified. That's great. So as I said, I just raised on WeFunder. It wasn't my company. I was actually a consultant who managed the offer. So I know I've raised on WeFunder. Just last week, Honeycomb Credit out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They had an offer up for a Black company, and they also interviewed me on their blog. So I've spoken with them and have a good relationship with them as well. And also Mainvest. And Mainvest and Honeycomb are both really focused on the small, local businesses. So that, those are people that I have direct relationships with, as well as with WeFunder. If you're looking to do real estate, I would definitely recommend By the Block, though.
Yeah, and I think Republic is another one who, early on, before, we became it, they were a group that really also was trying to bring Black people in. I will say one more thing about By the Block, and this is where I see a little bit of a trifecta coming together. One of the issues when we did our focus groups, one of the issues that the Black entrepreneurs had was that they were being denied because they didn't have a crowd. So it is great for you to be considered with these, with anybody, whether it's By the Block or, any of the other platforms. But if you don't have a crowd, it's kind of tough for you to raise the money that you're looking for. So one of the things that we're discussing is, okay, how do we create this trifecta of someone like a Bill Huston who is able to help you understand and navigate the legislation and the legal forms and the SEC and all of that, and then leveraging something like a By the Block to actually host your campaign, and then leveraging some, an organization like the 10K Project that can help you, because we can't do it all, but help you, get your information out there to people who are likely investors. And that is what I would love to see overall in the next 6 to 12 months, us do, and then also start to cultivate entrepreneurs that we can put into this engine as well. So, I hope that resonates with people, because I think that is ultimately, what's going to help us get much, much farther ahead than if we have these, individual silos. So I wanted to put that in there. Go
Can
ahead,
I add
Tawana.
a really quick comment before
Yeah,
Tawana goes?
Absolutely.
One of the things that I want to say to piggyback on what you said is that in the crowdfunding, the hardest part of crowdfunding is building a crowd. Because of our history in the United States, we are already built into crowds. We need to start changing the conversation in those crowds. We identified 66 Black Facebook business groups that have over 700,000 members. I'm a member of 13 Black real estate investor groups that have over 17,000 members. Those groups, those opportunities, that's where we need to come together with the 10K project, right? And we need to start having these conversations about how do we get funding? How do we fund ourselves? I love the 10K project, and I'm gonna be quiet in just a second, but this is such a powerful concept of crowdfunding. If you had 1 million people who invested $10, 1 million people who invested $10, that is $10 million. This is a real simple concept. We just need to do it. Thank you. Again, I appreciate you all giving me the opportunity to come on and speak, and I'm gonna be quiet.
Antoine said, what about Fund Black Founders? Fund Black Founders is an awesome organization. They don't do equity crowdfunding, though. Is that correct, Bill?
That is correct.
Yeah.
That is correct.
So if you have a rewards-based product and you want to crowdfund for it, they are absolutely, in my opinion, one of the top places you should seek out. But if you want equity, then it will have to be one of the other platforms. Okay. Ms. Vivian says, can crowdfunding be used for a 501c3 nonprofit? And I believe the answer is no to nonprofits.
For equity crowdfunding, no. No,
Right.
you cannot. It has to be, it has to be a business, an LLC or some type of business.
Yeah. Donna Jarrett Paris says, do you pay taxes to the IRS for the monies raised towards your product or company? Oh, yeah, Donna. Oh, yeah. The government's coming for their piece. It would be income to your business, right? So you would have to claim all income to your business. All right. And Anonymous says, what does the profile of a typical Black-owned business that receives crowd-funded equity look like? Are they primarily tech companies, or can, say, a startup restaurant, for example, participate? Bill, I'll let you take that one.
Yeah. So the obvious answer there is that anybody who has a crowd or anybody who can build a crowd, your money is in your crowd. There have been tech businesses that have raised, $1 million. There have been consumer facing businesses that have raised substantial amount of dollars. On By the Block, there have been 2 projects, one real estate project that raised $1 million, the Fifth Ward project in Houston, and there was a project in Baton Rouge that's raised over $500,000. So it's not really what that profile is. It's being able to create a shared vision and building a crowd around that shared vision. That's what's most important.
Yeah. I will add, though, that there is a level of organization you must have, right? So your financial books need to be in order. So that I would consider that a form of a profile, right? You need to, not just be cooking out of the kitchen and, and delivering the food to the people. You need to be a legal entity, so like really be an organized structure of a business. You don't have to have a storefront, but you need to have the foundation of a business, because remember, the SEC is putting the stamp of approval on this for you. So you need to make sure you pass all of their criteria as well. I see a couple of questions in the chat. What's rewards versus equity-based crowdfunding? You want me to take that, or you want to take that, Bill?
Oh, sure. I'll take it.
Okay.
So reward-based crowdfunding, when it started around 2009, a lot of times there were creators who were creative people, and they would actually offer like T-shirts, or a mug that that was branded, and then over time, what happened is reward crowdfunding kind of changed into what I like to call pre-selling, right? So if I had a product idea, I would be able to pre-sell that. If I had a new case for cell phones, I could pre-sell that case to you, get the money up front, and then at some point in the future, provide that case to you. With investment crowdfunding, as Tawana said, you have to be a business in order to even get approved. With a platform like WeFunder, they only accept 3% of people who actually apply to them. So that means 97% of those businesses are turned down. And for Buy the Block, in order to get on Buy the Block, there are certain things that you have to have, or you're not going to be considered. You have to have some type of business formation. You have to have a business plan. You have to have a pitch deck. So you have to be a real business. My experience tells me that businesses that already have customers are going to be businesses that are going to be able to do better, because they can instantly tap into that customer base. Just like in reward crowdfunding, with investment crowdfunding, you need to bring your own crowd to the platform. If you don't, you're not going to be successful. So being a real business, that's operating and having customers, that's going to be the biggest difference between rewards. You're still really in that seed phase. With investment crowdfunding, you're a little bit further down the line. You have some customers, you have a real business, you're operating, and a lot of times you're going to have revenue.
Yeah, I'll add, do you have a team? Do you have legal counsel? Do you have an accountant? That those things are critical. I was doing some research for the Bet on Black pitches with 10K, and I saw what appeared to be a really good business model, but only the CEO was in the team column. And I know how hard it is to run a business, and I can't imagine doing this by myself. So I don't imagine that one lone CEO could run a business that investors can count on to be a return, right? And so I had to kind of overlook that business, even though I was intrigued by the model. So remember that also when you're thinking about, are you a good fit for crowdfunding? Think about your team, think about your resources. Can you build and scale this business to honor the desires of your investors, right? Because that's what we're talking about ultimately. You are taking on investors, which is an extra added stressor and responsibility for you. And so it's not just about the money you gain, right? It's about now you have new responsibilities. Are you ready for that? Does your business model allow you to scale, right? And so, as you're watching this presentation and really thinking about, am I a good fit for this? Do I want to fool with it? And you reach out to someone like a Bill for consultancy, make sure you're thinking about all those questions you have to ask to make sure that you're in it. Because we see a lot of campaigns that don't do well because once they get on the platform, they just don't have any energy left to promote themselves, right? And these are a lot of good projects that I'm seeing that are not coming close to even their goals or much beyond that. And so this is the long game you're playing when you take on investments, right? It's not a short-term plan.
So Tawana, I think that's a good segue to talk about the 10K project and the Bet on Black pitch and what you're leading within the company.
Perfect. So, as Cherie talked about, we are a community of investors. We're also a community of entrepreneurs. I like to say we're a community of entrepreneurs and investors. And we've got, several core benefits that we offer to our entrepreneurs. And I'll focus on that since I think most of you are entrepreneurs, maybe also investors, but you're here to hear about the entrepreneur side of it. We've got a knowledge center that houses trainings that we've done, and we're We're working to put some more content out there. We have live training seminars for those of you who are already members. We bring some amazing guests like Bill Huston to the platform to teach us their specialty, their profession from an investor standpoint. We're learning about alternative investment options. We have a business directory where entrepreneurs and all members actually can put their information in about what their skill set is, because one of our goals is that as the entrepreneurs raise money within the 10K community, they then go off, they grow their business, right? And now they can start hiring talent. We want them to come back to the 10K project to hire that talent. So we have the business directory available that will include every talent that someone may have. Originally, we thought we were just going to do like the CPAs and the attorneys. And we thought, well, wait a minute, someone may need a carpenter. Someone may need someone who sells lighting. And so if we want to bring them back into this community to continue to grow their business, let's open up the skills to whatever people say they have, right? Now, obviously, if you come for a skill, you need to vet the skill and make sure they have everything you need, right? Because we don't know if they're a great carpenter or not. But the goal is we want you to come back into this community to source that talent. You know, the same community that believed in you early and invested in you, come back into the community and believe in them. We also, for both the entrepreneur's benefit and the investor benefit, is we want to be your crowd, right? So Bill talked about several times that crowdfunding is really only successful with the crowd. We want to be part of your crowd. And so what we will be doing for entrepreneurs who meet our criteria is we will be inviting you to pitch your business to the 10K project. Now, that is only after you are approved by the SEC and you are on an SEC and FINRA approved portal. So if you just have an amazing business and you don't really want to do crowdfunding, but you need an audience, unfortunately, we are only doing pitches for equity crowdfunding, right? Because our plan is if we grow the business, we help the entrepreneur grow the business, the investors ultimately invest in that business, right? And we all benefit because your business scales, grows, goes on to make billions of dollars, and your investors can build generational wealth for their families. So, and that's our goal. Once you become approved, as I stated with SEC, we will have a link for you to select on our website where you can send us information about your project. And then, I'll be reaching out to you to get some more information, kind of interview you on the process and learn more about your business and see if you would be a good candidate for our pitches. I will add, it's not just equity crowdfunding on crowdfunding portals. It's any fundraising effort that is approved by the SEC. So some people don't do crowdfunding per se, but they have private placement memorandums, right? Some of the real estate deals are that, and they can take up to a certain amount of unaccredited investors or accredited investors. We will be looking at those types of opportunities as well. So anything that is SEC approved fundraising is how I like to say it. All right.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We got a couple more questions that I think are good. Joseph says, if a company does not do too well, I think is what he's trying to say, do well, can you write it off on our taxes? So Joseph, are you the entrepreneur in this scenario, or are you the investor in this question scenario? And I'll wait for you to add that in there. I'll go to the next question. Lorana says, what are the expected costs involved with a crowdfunding campaign? Bill, you're closer to this. You want to take that one?
Sure. And that's a great question because there are costs. Just like there's costs to go to the bank and borrow money, there are costs to raise money. You're probably going to need anywhere between 5 and 7% of your raise is going to need to go to marketing your crowd is and how much of your crowd that you've actually built. You're probably going to need somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 to get your legal and financial house in order if it's not. But even if it is in order, that's still going to need to be approved. So right now, during COVID, there's a limit where you can go up to $250,000 without having your books reviewed. If you go over $250,000 and you go up to another $285,000, then you need a independent review of your books. And if you go over that point to raise the next $850,000 currently, then you actually have to have a full-on audit of your books. So there is going to be a charge for that. So, you have to think about marketing. You have to think about, what your legal and financial costs are going to be as you move into, into raising funds. There's nothing free, and there's always a cost for money. So that's a great question.
Very good. And I'll go back to Joseph's question. So he said, investor. So if a company does not do well, can you as the investor write it off on your taxes? So I would imagine that there is some kind of tax document that, well, let me back up. Let me think about that first. I'm thinking about my own situation. I've invested in several crowdfunding ventures, and I've not received any tax documents because they're startups and there's no tax implication for me yet as an investor. There hasn't been any liquidity events or anything like that. So I think that may vary based on the actual investment.
And if I could add real quickly, if this is part of that question, is, if you invest and they don't raise the money, your capital comes back to you. If up until the very last moment, you decide to change your mind, that capital comes back to you. So there's always a window for investors to get their money back. Once that money is taken and invested, though, then it's gone. There's always risk. This is something I've gotten so used to saying. So, this is not an absolute thing. There is always business risk that exists. So always keep that in mind. Never invest money that you can't afford to lose.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so let's talk a little bit more about that, because I think that as entrepreneurs, you guys really need to hear more about that. So with equity crowdfunding currently, I won't say currently, coming soon, mid-March is the date I've heard. The 15th I've heard the 23rd, which I thought was a very interesting date, but sometime in March, the regs will be finalized where you could raise up to $5 million on a regulation crowdfunding raise, right? $5 million. But everybody doesn't need $5 million, right? So there are minimum goals that you set for yourself. And if you meet that minimum goal, then anything you raise above that minimum, that goal and above, you then are considered to have had a successful campaign, right? And but if you come under the goal, so say you only need $100,000 and you only raise 60, right? Then you don't get any of the money because you didn't meet your minimum. And everyone who invested in you, the people who invested that 60, they get all of their money back, right? And so when you think about the potential to raise up to $5 million, because some of us do need that, right? Some of us want to open manufacturing plants. Some of us want to do amazing things for our businesses. Maybe you got a trucking company and you want to buy a fleet. You may need $1 million or more to do something like that. So when Bill talks about this being a game changer, I just want to put the dollar amount on there to make it really real for you. This is truly a way to build wealth in this community, right? By building the entrepreneur and then in turn, building the investor. So, really, really consider if this is something you can do for the business. We've got time for maybe 3 more questions. Joshua says, are these tech-friendly funding options for apps? Joshua, I'm not sure I understand your question, but I can tell you crowdfunding ventures are for all business types. So anything I've seen everything. I've seen the food items, right? I've seen the kids' toys. I've seen the technology, anything you can raise money for. And there are many of applications that are out there as well. The crowdfunding platforms themselves, they have very interactive um, platforms where you can absolutely, invest from your phone, send notes from your phone. So if you mean friendly from that standpoint, you can absolutely get to most of the bigger platforms anyway. You can use them from a mobile device. Right. Juanita says, what percent should you have committed from your crowd before you approach the platform? So it's actually the other way around, I think, Juanita. So while you need to identify through your marketing plan how you're going to bring the crowd, right? Maybe you come back to 10K for part of that. Maybe you reach out to family and friends. Maybe you have some big marketing plan. Those are all of the things you could consider. But you actually have to get approved first, right? Because you can't present to a team, a group of investors before you are an SEC approved crowdfunding issuer. So you actually have to do it in the reverse. So you wouldn't get your commitment percent before you got approval. You get approval first. Did I miss anything on that, Bill?
No, without getting too deep into the weeds, though, another one of the changes coming down the road is what they call test the waters. So with that test the waters, you're going to be able to potentially pitch to some investors prior to getting on the platform. I think that is, again, going to be a game changer, because now if you have your crowd, the platforms are going to be vying for you as opposed to the other way around.
Wow. That's interesting. Very, very interesting. Ms. Vivian says, which investment crowdfunding companies charge more to use their platforms? I've seen them all over the place. The highest I think I've seen is 7.5%. And I've seen from 5 to 7.5. Have you seen different ranges, Bill, for that?
That's basically it. From my knowledge, By the Block is the lowest at 4.5%.
Yeah, that's
low. And I know that WeFunder charges 7.5%.
Yeah, and I think Start Engine might be at 7, and Republic might be at 5. Net Capital, I think, is around 5.5. So they all vary. But I will say, and not vying for the portals, because I don't have any skin in their game, but don't just look at the amount they charge on your raise. Look at the services they provide for you as well, right? Because it's not, even when 10K was thinking about being a portal, we had these conversations. It's not just about the percent of your raise that you give them. It's everything else they're giving you. And so that does matter as well. Okay, let's see. Okay, one more question. Let me scan through them and see which ones we haven't answered. Terrence says, what are the odds of a brand new startup getting funded through 10K? So I'm gonna answer your question a different way, Terrence, because one, crowdfunding is for the most part about startups. These a lot of the businesses are established, but many of them are startups. So I would say, how innovative are you? And how innovative is your product? How solid is your business plan? Because again, these are investors, right? So how solid is your business plan? What are your long-term goals for the business? How will you use the money, right? These are all the things we're looking for to determine if you're a good fit for our community. And so I would say the odds of you being able, or a small startup being able to come pitch to us, depends on all of those things. All right. Let's see.
Can I add one here?
Yes,
Or add one here. This is from the chat. This is a good one. Deshaun is asking, how can you share more about pitching for the 10K project? So with the Bet on Black pitches, what we're looking at doing is having an entrepreneur come and pitch their business anywhere from 15 to 20 minutes. They would have the stage in order to be able to talk about their business. What do they talk about? They talk about what the business is. How does the company make money? Who's on their management team? What percentage of it is Black owned? What are they raising the money for? How much are they raising? All of those things they talk about within those 15 to 20 minutes. And then we open it up for Q&A with the audience. Now, with our 10K project members, with the audience, one of the things you're going to get is the 22 most common questions that professional investors ask during a pitch. That doesn't mean that all 22 of those questions necessarily link to every company that you're hearing about. However, they are general questions about the company so that, people are able within the investment community, people are able to say, okay, yes, I did hear this information. Oh, I want to know a little bit more about that, et cetera. And then each individual, like after the Bet on Black pitch, each individual person has the ability to go to the campaign URL. They're able to download all of the documents associated with that campaign. They're able to do your own individual research, also called due diligence. And you as an individual are able to decide if you like that company or if you are passing on it. Now, just because someone passes on the company doesn't mean that they don't like your company. It may not fit into their portfolio. They may not have the budget at this time, but that's how the process of pitching works. And that is how investors actually will approach your pitch. So then the other question is, because Tanju is asking this, on the front end, she's interested, but she is not really sure what to do, what the next steps are. So Bill is a crowdfunding coach. I suggest one of the first things you do is go to his website, connect with him, go to his email him, and he'll give you all of the information, the documents that you should read through and make sure that equity crowdfunding is right for you. And then if it is, one of the other things you are able to do is connect with Tawana, T-Rivers at the10kproject.com. And, once you have your stuff filed with the SEC and say, hey, I have my Form C filed and everything, and I would like to be considered. Tawana has an application that she'll send to you. And then based on whether or not it works with regards to what we're looking for within the 10K project, she will let you know a yay or nay based on your approval with the SEC and the portal. So I hope that answers that question with regards to the process. Do you have anything else to add to that, Tawana? Because people may have, okay. All right.
That was good. Anonymous says, during your pitch, how much info do you give? Is there a fear that someone will steal your idea? Well, once you're on a public, these portals are public, right? Anyone can go to them and find them. So at the point upon which you are in the public's eye trying to get investments via crowdfunding, your business is not a secret anymore. So you want to make sure you have your patents in place, your trademarks in place, right? Because you're now out there for the whole world to see and invest in. So if you're still in that phase of your business where you're protecting your IP and you don't have all of your protections in place, then you may not yet be a good candidate for crowdfunding.
Yeah. I'd like to comment on that as well. So I'm a business plan writer. I've been one for a decade. I get a lot of people who come to me who just have an idea and they want an NDA. I have no problem signing an NDA. However, if you're going to a venture capitalist, they're not going to sign an NDA. So once your information is out there, you can pretty much consider it out there. So you want to share enough to get whet the person's appetite, but that doesn't mean you give them your whole chemical compound for your, for your product. For example, I was talking with a gentleman yesterday who has a fire suppression product. Well, I didn't ask him for his chemical compound, so I can't steal that, but I know that he's working on this fire suppression thing. I hope that makes sense for people. So one of the worst things I see people do is they try to guard their ideas so much that they end up not getting anywhere because they're so guarded with it. The other thing that I will say, again, with regards to NDAs and putting your information out there, is an NDA is only as strong as your ability to go to court and fight the person who did not abide by it. So, those are just a couple of things to think about as well.
Okay, I know we got to go. I'm the one with a 1 o'clock also.
Yes.
But there's another good question. I just want to get all the questions answered. I want them to really be able to consider, crowdfunding. And if these questions help, then I want to do my part. So Otto says, are there any crowdfunding companies who will manage the ongoing management of the investment over time? Or are there different companies that do that? So Otto, that management is handled by companies called transfer agents. They will manage your investors and give your stock certificates and all of that stuff. So you just have to employ a relationship with a transfer agent. Okay. Otto also corrected the question I was asking, or that Joseph asked. He said, Tawana, I believe Joseph is talking about writing off a total loss. So when Joseph asked the question about the tax write-offs, so Otto believes Joseph is saying, what if the company goes completely under? Is there a write-off for that? I would say check with your accountant for that. None of us are accountants, so I would say check with your accountant for that. But thank you, Otto, for the clarification. And I think I answered all of the questions.
Okay, so why don't we, number one, if you are, a small dollar investor, you like what we're doing at the 10K Project, we want to invite you to become a member, the10kproject.com, the10kproject.com to become a member. And Bill, when should people get in touch with you and how do they get in touch with you?
So the easiest way to get in touch with me is to go to crowd-max.com. All my information is there. You can email me at Bill Huston, Huston, at crowd-max.com. So those are the two easiest ways to get in contact with me. If you have a business and you are, you're a real business with everything that Tawana said, hit me up and we can talk and we can go from there.
And when you hit Bill up for consultancy, remind him that you met him right here at the 10K Project.
Yes. All righty then, everybody. Well, thank you so much for participating. We will have another one of these on March 9th at 6 p.m. with Maureen Murat, Esquire. So she's an attorney and a crowdfunding expert as well. And we're going to be doing these twice a month for the foreseeable future. So we're going to have different guests coming on and giving their perspectives. So please come back on March the 9th, which is a Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. for the next one of these that we're going to have. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a great weekend.